So apparently the internet is going to end soon.
On Tuesday, December 15th, 1970, Season 2, Episode 12 aired of the comedy sketch show Monty Python's Flying Circus. The title of the episode was Spam.
That's an interesting place to start an episode about the internet dying.
In the episode, there is a sketch, also titled Spam, in which a husband and wife are lowered on wires into a cafe filled with Vikings. Once sat, the husband and wife ask the waitress about the meals available at the cafe. The waitress proceeds to describe each menu item to the couple. Nearly every item has the canned meat, Spam, in it. Some dishes are just Spam with multiple sides of Spam. Spam, 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 egg, and Spam. One dish is described as. When the woman customer declares that she does not like Spam and she wants a meal without any, the waitress denies her request, and suddenly the Vikings around them begin to sing, Spam, 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 lovely Spam, wonderful Spam. The interaction devolves further and further as the Vikings' chants and waitress's screams in support of Spam increase, droning out the conversation into indiscernible absurdity. Then, the sketch essentially ends, and the customer, we can reasonably assume, does not get a meal without Spam in it.
I feel like this entire intro is just to confuse me.
Although this Monty Python sketch had nothing to do with media or the internet, it would strangely and powerfully foreshadow forthcoming conditions of media and the internet, and it would ultimately lead directly to the term spam being used in internet vernacular. In the context of media and the internet, the term spam broadly refers to excessive, irrelevant, unwanted, insincere, or repeated communication or content. As a result of the Monty Python sketch, in the 1980s, in early online chat rooms, message boards, and virtual games, users would repeatedly type spam along with other quotes from the Monty Python sketch in order to knock the text of other unwanted users or competitors down and off screen and gatekeep discourse. Around the same time, the term spam would also come to be used to refer to the repeated and excessive posting of the same messages on file and message sharing networks. Of course, it only helps and is all the more fitting that Spam, the canned meat, is highly processed and unhealthy, high in calories, fat, and sodium, and low in nutrients. Since the 1980s, media and the internet have, of course, evolved tremendously. Between 1981 and 1989, the number of hosts connected to the internet went from hundreds to hundreds of thousands, with an increase from 80,000 to over 160,000 hosts in 1989 alone. Also in 1989, the World Wide Web was created, which, for the first time, made digital content easily reachable and shareable for the average consumer. By the mid-1990s, there were...
Depends on your idea of content. I mean, most of it wasn't like stuff that people were really reading and consuming. It was more informational. I guess that's still content, is just very specific. There was a lot less creativity on the internet at the time.
There were over 100,000 websites on the web. Around 40% of American households owned a computer, which was just 15% a couple years prior. Suddenly, new opportunities for connection and creativity abounded. For the first time in history, individuals could easily message people across the world in chats, publish and share their art and homemade videos, create digital profiles in digital stores, purchase and download things like movies and books, order physical goods to be delivered to their home, and innumerable other unbelievable and world-changing acts. Now, as of 2024, it's estimated that around 70% of the global population owns a smartphone. That's roughly 5 billion people. It's also...
I'm guessing the extra 30% are young children and the severely elderly.
Now estimated that there are well over 1 billion websites, and the average person currently spends around 6 hours and 35 minutes online every day.
Those rookie numbers. Gotta get those numbers up.
Needless to say, the internet and internet devices have fully consumed us, and the conditions of the internet are crucially important to the human experience. Of course, along with new opportunities for the distribution of enriching things on the internet, so too have new opportunities for the distribution of problems and hazardous content evolved on the internet, one of which is spam and spam-like media. For the sake of clarity, spam and spam-like media here includes anything from unwanted emails all the way to digital content that unreasonably exploits platform algorithms, automation, and/or excessive posting, often for the sole purpose of views and engagement. The problem of spam might appear somewhat trivial at first, especially when considered against much darker activities and possibilities on the internet. With the increasing development and
Yeah, the AI use in videos, like as a helper, sure. Like I have a bit of tech I can use to help subtitle my videos automatically through my video editing software. But when you have AI making and posting the video, that's literally like just gonna flood the market with a whole bunch of BS that I mean, algorithms already do a lot of terrible stuff when it comes to directing you towards what's going to make you unhappy and angry because that gets you more engaged. And if AI starts amplifying that, it's only going to make things worse. And they're going to be able to crank out content so insanely fast to just make it so it's all you can ever see. It's concerning.
thriving of spam-like media points to a deep, holistic problem about the current architecture and future of the internet and humanity at large. The internet, in its current form, does not merely have spam on the menu. The menu is, in many ways, increasingly that of the Monty Python Cafe. All menu items on offer seem to contain spam in some form. And worse, our palates seem to be increasingly burnt and numb by this to actually desire it, to enjoy less and less of the nuanced flavors that we previously did.
AKA doom scrolling on Instagram and TikTok. But also, I tried using like IGN recently on my phone, and it is borderline unusable because of how massive the ads are and how much space they take up. And you're basically trying to navigate between them and not click on it with an accidental swipe.
As both creators and consumers of media, many of us seem to want quicker, easier, and more processed content, which often doesn't challenge or require much of us, and we are increasingly willing to ignore the intentions and consequences of said content. Inspired and led by philanthropic beasts, herds of Viking creators chase watch time as audiences welcome the pillaging with eager eyes. There is a theory about the internet that has recently garnered increasing notoriety, largely as a result of the mainstream introduction and popularization of generative AI. The theory is known as the dead internet theory. The origins of the theory primarily trace back to an anonymous thread created in 2021 on the Agora Roads Macintosh Cafe forum. Its origins, specifics, and conspiratorial nature are rather questionable, but the broad sentiment, at least now, feels somewhat valid. Putting aside the conspiratorial and paranoid claims of the theory, most broadly, the theory suggests that most online activity is fake in some way, either bot activity or AI-generated content created and curated by algorithms. Because of this,
I mean, if you go on Facebook, this is like already alive and well. The last time I went on Facebook, it was like 90% AI posts, and there's AI bots replying to the AI posts. And on top of that, there's a few random people that don't seem to be able to tell the difference, even though it's super, super obvious, and then engaging with it. And it's making everything worse.
according to the theory, the internet, as a source of unbridled human activity and flourishing, died somewhere around the year 2016. In that same year of 2016, a cybersecurity company by the name of Imperva in fact did find that bots, or software applications that perform automated tasks without human intervention, accounted for over half of all online activity. They also found that around 30% of websites
That's a slightly skewed number, though, I feel like, because you got a number of bots doing like super small, inconsequential tasks online that they might be doing a million of them an hour. And that's going to wind up raking up the numbers. But in actuality, all they're really doing is like checking for the price of something on a stock exchange or whatever. Like, you need a little more context to that number.
site visits likely came from bad bots or programs designed to carry out harmful actions like theft and hacking. The other roughly 20% of bots, however, were found to be good bots, or bots that help monitor and upkeep aspects of the internet.
Yeah, see, a lot of the activity is just automated tasks. So that's going to take up a good chunk of it.
This was nearly 10 years ago. We can more than reasonably assume that those numbers have gone up since then. Of course, these percentages include the entire internet in all corners and pockets, so it's not necessarily the case that the majority of the content and websites you personally consume and visit are fake, assuming you engage in reasonably well curated and stable websites and
Well, even the stuff that is actually made by people, even that's most of the time fake because it's a very curated version of whatever they want to show you. AKA all the people on Instagram and fitness influencers and whatever. It's like they're not going to show you their bad days. They're showing you how amazing they are, even if they might be having like deep rooted issues that is destroying their life. But they want to make it seem like it's amazing. It's all fake. 90, or I would say like 80 to 90% of the time, it's fake, whether it's AI or human.
platforms. But the point is, no matter who you are, how savvy you are, and what you do on the internet, there is no avoiding fake content and fake traffic, and even more so, there is certainly no avoiding spam-like content. This year, in 2024, Jack Conte, the founder and CEO of the creator monetization platform Patreon, gave a keynote at the conference South by Southwest titled Death of the Follower and the Future of Creativity on the Web. The focus of his presentation was primarily on the development and effects of algorithmic feeds on social media and content distribution platforms. Specifically, Conte's argument is that major platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok have moved primarily into algorithmic ranking-based content distribution feeds and away from follow-based feeds. In other words, internet content is distributed based on computer algorithms that rank content using metrics of engagement like watch time and not.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed this on this channel as well as my other channel. Like it matters less and less who subscribes to you. Although I do appreciate anybody that does subscribe. Feel free to subscribe if that's your thing. Whatever. That's my little call out. But in actuality, like YouTube is changing to just put whatever it thinks might work for that particular user in front of them, no matter whether or not they subscribe to somebody or anything like that.
Based on people selectively and intentionally curating what is shown to them based on who they follow or subscribe to. As a result, according to Conte, this has caused content creators and their audiences to become increasingly pulled apart. In my opinion, Conte says, the follow is not some handy feature of a social network. The follow is foundational architecture for human creativity and organization. With the follow becoming less central to content distribution, content creators increasingly need to create for an algorithm rather than for a clear audience or fan base. Conte says,
Yeah, I've noticed that on my other channel, we have a Discord server, and that's where we like hang out and chat and whatever. But outside of that, the community itself isn't quite as thriving because it's fed to everybody in a different way.
for the first time since Web 2.0, my followers might not necessarily see my posts, and the idea of a subscription started to break down. If a person doesn't receive the thing I make, it's not really a direct true connection between a creator and their fans. It's not really a subscription. The channel of distribution is broken, and it creates another problem too around creative freedom, because now suddenly my post has to be better than the other posts according to a set of criteria that I don't know or have control of, or even agree with. So instead of thinking, what do I want to make? What lights me up? What is the output that I want to create as an artist? What will my fans love? Instead of thinking about those questions, now, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what will the ranking algorithm favor? And that, subconsciously or consciously, changes my creative output to achieve the platform's goals, not my goals as a creator.
This is very unfortunately true. I'm seeing a lot more of it in the YouTube algorithm. And it's tough, especially because it's an algorithm and we have next to no insight on it. We can always just kind of make slightly educated guesses, but that educated part is pretty minimal.
The primary goal for almost all social media platforms is to make money. The primary means of achieving this goal for most platforms is through advertising revenue. And the primary means of generating, sustaining, and growing ad revenue is by attracting as many users to the platform and then keeping users on the platform as long as possible. At the scale of major social media platforms, algorithmic-based ranking feeds seems to achieve this the best. As a result, algorithms have increasingly taken control over what we see and the direction in which online media and content goes. We are thus being increasingly led by these algorithms with no clear aim in terms of benefit to the individual or culture at large. The cause and end game are merely profitability. Of course, algorithms are not inherently bad, and they could provide great opportunities for things like discoverability for creators and consumers. Furthermore, pursuing watch time in algorithms isn't inherently always bad either, as it can be useful for improving one's work. But a major problem is, under these conditions, one of the forms of media and content that prospers is either full-on spam or media that has a flavor of spam to it. In order to appease algorithms and either forge or maintain a career and social relevancy, creators might change their content format, category, or topics from what they are primarily interested in to what's popular and what works, often leading to blatant copying, repetitiveness, redundancy, dumbing down, carelessness, or excessively frequent posting. Otherwise, they might risk inevitably being overlooked by the algorithms and forgotten by anyone who is not in their most core audience.
As someone who is posting a lot, I feel this to an insane degree. I don't try and do it to overload my audience or to spam them, but just because I want to make sure I get things out there and I make my opinions known. But I can see how it would turn a lot of places into more like content farms or content factories.
These problems of fake traffic, algorithmic disconnect, and spam media have only become increasingly worse with the introduction and mainstream use of generative AI. Now, AI models can message humans in chats and message other AI models, create digital art and video content, create and manage digital profiles in stores, determine and execute purchases and economic decisions, as well as innumerable other unbelievable and world-changing acts. But now, humans are less and less involved. Hence, the internet is, at least in the way it once was, dead. In its wake, a new sort of internet is emerging. What this new form will ultimately become, how it will feel, what help and harm, positives and negatives it might cause, will only be known in time. But what does appear to be certain is that AI is only going to get better, and the problems of disconnection, fakeness, and spam-like media are only going to get worse. Of course, generative AI is not all bad, and there are countless great applications for it, both currently and foreseeably. But if we are not careful, more than anything else, our digital diets will continue to become unhealthier and unhealthier. It will be increasingly difficult to hear and make sense of anything, to want to hear and make sense of anything, to find and get what we want to order.
I mean, we're already getting to the point where people's attention spans are reducing more and more and more, so I think we're pretty much already there.
It is not hopeless, though. Hopefully, in time, there will be reasonable regulations around AI and internet media. Hopefully,
Assuming that regulations are going to go in place fast enough to combat this I am not super hopeful of it, because technology moves way faster than regulations do.
new technologies will also help mitigate against some of the existing and forthcoming problems and execute effectively on reasonable policies and cultural expectations. If history is to be considered, it seems that this is certainly on the table of possibilities. But of course, if history is to be considered, regulations and new technologies designed to restrain bad actors and bad technologies are always, at least a little, behind the people and technologies they are designed to catch.
Exactly.
Perhaps in some sense, at least for now, it is up to us, creators and consumers of content, founders and users of platforms. There is a famous saying that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. A more up-to-date version of this might be that we are the average of the 5 creators and 5 content categories we spend the most time on the internet consuming. Arguably, now and into the future, making decisions about what we do and engage with on the internet will be as crucial as the decisions we make regarding our friends and associates. Of course, in some sense, this has always been the case, and determining what media we consume has always been crucial. But crucial is a spectrum, and now it is highly. Ultimately, who cares if the dead internet theory is true or not? Who cares if the old internet is dead or not? What matters are...
I mean, the old internet is dead. I don't think that this is really a question anymore. It's more of a reality, but to what degree is that death is different.
arguably, is whether we can and will sustain what matters in new ways in the new conditions of the world and technology. And what matters is what matters to us, our humanity at its truest and deepest levels. As humans, we want to create, communicate, and connect with each other, unabridged and unbridled. We want reasonably healthy and sustainable relationships with others, with ourselves, and with the networks of the world, both physical and digital. We want honesty, we want genuineness, we want symbiosis, we want prosperity. The internet is and can still be a place where this happens. Of course, there will always be the spam cafes, and spam will likely find its way on most menus, and most of us will likely indulge in it on occasion. But like everything else, with discipline, hope, and effort, we can still eat healthy diets. We can still build beautiful restaurants and eateries and communities with minimal spam on the menus. We can still break bread.
I don't know. Spam can be kind of delicious. Just saying. Is it mosubi? The where you mix essentially, yeah, the Hawaiian stuff. Freaking delicious.
Bread together in meaningful ways. In the words of Conti, the hardest lesson I have learned as a creative person and as an operator and CEO over the last 10 years is to know and trust what I want and to be true to that over time. It's easier said than done, but don't let somebody else tell you what you want, because then you'll end up with what they want instead of what you want.
That's easy to say as somebody who doesn't really have to make the content for a living anymore. Like, this guy probably makes more than enough money that he never has to worry about anything again. I hear the same thing from other YouTubers saying like, oh, well, they need to be making the best videos possible and they don't care as much about the story, but they're worrying too much about the algorithm. And you have to worry about that as a creator unless you're super big already, unless you don't have to worry about anything anymore. I think it's a little disingenuous to just say like, oh, well, you should just be focusing on the art of it. Well, yeah, it's great to make something beautiful. It's great to make something that matters to people and matters to you. But at the same time, you're on a platform that deals with the algorithm. And if you want people to see it, you got to play ball with that. And if you don't play, nobody's ever going to see it. And if nobody ever sees it, then you're kind of stuck at the level you're always going to be at, trying to make the exact same stuff you want to make, but that nobody else might ever see.
On a somewhat more direct, hazardous level, one problem area where spam inevitably shows up for all of us is junk messages.
Well, he's about to jump into an ad. He is sponsored by Incogni, so I will throw that out there. I don't want everybody to sit through an ad at the end of the video, but he's sponsored by Incogni. If you want to check out the full video and watch it directly, give it a like, a follow, a subscribe, a view. He's a Pursuit of Wonder. I will put a link down in the description. It's a good video, but at the same time, I feel like it was just more like this generic idea that just kind of was just like, oh, but this is just kind of the concept. Like, I would love if somebody just takes more of a firm stance and just like, yes, we're at the point where the internet is dying. I kind of feel like we're there, judging by this description, but that's just my opinion.